I think if you have a problem in your business, the first question to ask, and I'll choose some examples. Somebody didn't do it the way it was supposed to be done. It should have been done like this. Those kind of situations. The first place you should look is in the mirror at yourself and ask, have I created the environment for that to happen well? Have I provided the clarity? Have I provided the support? Did they have the tools? Before you start to go pointing, it's that to me is one of the biggest lessons that I had early on in my career. I tried to live like that.
Welcome back to Made to Grow, the podcast custom made for SME manufacturers, brought to you by Flowlens MRP software. Today, we're welcoming back Tom Hughes, lean manufacturing guru, author and founder of GembaDocs, the app on a mission to bring calm and productive flow to workplaces around the globe. Tom's episode in Season 1, where we talked about his experience of discovering and then implementing lean methodology in various manufacturing organizations, was one of our most popular episodes. So, we're delighted to welcome Tom back as he prepares to publish his next book, which focuses on standard operating procedures and the methodology he recommends for successfully implementing them in your organization. As ever, this is a lively discussion and hopefully you'll be inspired. So let's jump right in. Welcome to the Made to Grow podcast, and special welcome back to Tom Hughes from GembaDocs.
Thanks for having me on, Rich.
Pleasure. Your episode in Season 1 was probably one of the most talked about, commented and listened to episodes, given our listeners a flavour of lean, and I'm delighted to have you back to talk more about the specifics of standard operating procedures and really the bread and butter of GembaDocs. For those who didn't get the chance to listen to that episode, they should go and check it out. But could you just give the listeners a quick intro to yourself and GembaDocs and what brought you to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Tom Hughes. I'm the founder and CEO at GembaDocs. I've been in engineering and manufacturing for over 30 years, quality background and lean and international senior management leadership roles. So I have a lot of experience of managing change in organizations. And really, GembaDocs was born out of that blend of experience because we were introducing a new product at my latest company, and we needed to implement standard work instructions for that. And we were approaching it the old way of doing it, and it just wasn't cutting it. We were taking far too long over it. And my business partner said, "Hey, you've got a software company. Can't you solve that?" So here we are, three years later, 30 countries plus, thousands of users every day. And GembaDocs is loved by our clients. I can actually say that. And we're really helping bring calm, productive flow. That's what our business is about, is to enable calm, productive flow so people can create value easily at the front line. They've got the information they need at their fingertips. They're trained properly, and everybody knows what they're doing. That's what really standards give you when they're done well.
Yeah, I love the phrase, any road will get you there if you don't know where you're going. And people can spend years thinking they're doing the right things and trying to get through the day, but actually the clarity of well written and agreed procedures frees you up, basically, doesn't it? It frees the mind.
It certainly does. And the whole process, it's not just about the final destination of having standards. It's the whole process that your organization needs to go through to make sure that that's a meaningful change within your organization, that they're not just wallpaper, which, I haven't been doing this like for this length of time. I started out as a quality manager implementing BS 5750, and I saw how easy it was for procedures to be wallpaper. So that kind of blended experience of understanding how people embrace or are repelled by standards is really built into everything we're doing with GembaDocs, both the design of the software and how we advise customers to implement it. So they need to be implemented. I believe implemented in Latin means fixed in place. And that's really important. It's the process you need to go through to get those standard processes that's really important.
Well, let's unpack that. So presumably at this stage, after 3 years and hundreds of customers, you've kind of got that perfected as to how you help customers get the most out of the product and get to that point where it is fixed in place. How
Yeah, yeah,
and
we,
it's
we,
not
we
just about
certainly do.
starting presumably with that mindset piece because um, the most difficult scenarios we find is when customers want the silver bullet, but they don't necessarily want to change their mindset or how they actually do things. So how do you get to that end state? Or well, I know it's a journey. How do you get to that new state?
Well, having supported literally hundreds, and I've had literally thousands of interactions over the last 3 years with people doing this well, seeing their struggles, having done it myself multiple times pre GembaDocs, I reckon that we've come up with like a key 4-step framework that anybody can follow to make this a real living, breathing part of their culture, part of their standard of culture. So I'm actually writing a new book about this at the moment. To help people. I feel it's a gap that's missing. You've got literature from automotive and in particular Toyota about how you implement standard work, which is a really deep, resource hungry approach within automotive. And I've been part of that in my past. And then you've got books that are written for people that are so far away from manufacturing, their knowledge based businesses. There's a multiple of books about that really don't go deep enough, and there's no middle ground. So that's what I've noticed. So that's the gap that I'm going to fill with the book that I'm currently writing to help people, especially SME manufacturers. How do you do this? So that's what well, we can talk about that today. It'd be great.
Yeah. Can you well so go into that in a bit more detail as to what are the kind of steps that you recommend that SMEs follow?
Well, really, it's a four-step process, and visually looks a bit like the Deming cycle, which is PDCA that many people in manufacturing will already be familiar with. So we start. I'll break it over at the top. What are the 4 steps to start? And then we can dive into each one, I'd suggest. So we have first of all we have an alignment phase where we are getting the organization lined up. So why are we doing this? What are the expectations? There is a selling element to the team and the people to create a poll for why would we want to do this, and what expectations are we going to have within the team that need to be fulfilled. So that's the alignment phase, step one. Step two is the document phase. So it's not just let's write procedures. That doesn't cut it for core business processes. So we'll go into how do you document a proper process during this call. Then we have implement, which is fix in place, which for me is about awareness, training, and validation. That's the step to get it actually. Everybody knows the standards exist. They've been trained, they've been verified that they know what we're doing. And finally, you've got a process of improvement. So you regularly look at your core processes and you review them for currency, uh, opportunities to simplify, opportunities to make them better. And that builds your wheel of continuous improvement. So it's a pretty simple process, actually,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Well, this is and I think alluding to my previous point about that mindset, if it doesn't come from the leadership, um, is it destined to fail? In terms of actually embedding that, because an SME, as we both know, has many competing challenges,
Yeah.
and today's good intentions to review, XYZ procedures goes out the window when a supplier lets you down or somebody's sick or you name it. Um, so really interested because we see some similarities in our own work of implementing FlowLens, and if the foundations aren't right, the whole thing is destined
Hmm.
to fail. So
Hmm. I
um,
would actually say, Rich, it's a very similar process. What I
mhm.
just outlined there is the ideal process if you're going to implement FlowLens. I'd say it looks quite similar. You need to get the team aligned, you need to document the processes, actually make them in FlowLens. You need to make sure everybody's trained and knows about them and how to do them. And then you should look at continuously improving those processes, like with a structure, a structured framework. That's the perfect implementation process.
We'll talk more about that final phase because you're right. There's a reinforcement element, but there's also an improvement piece to what we practice. But we'll go back to step one. So the alignment phase. You've seen this hundreds of times now. How do you achieve success in getting the team buy-in?
I'll actually just pull out. I wrote. Sorry for going off camera for a second there.
That's okay. The viewers
I
can see
actually
me
wrote this little book. You can get it on GembaDocs.com. A book's an exaggeration. A great process is a quick guide on how to make any workplace better with SOPs. So that's a half-hour read. It's 5,000 words. It's pretty. See there. It's not the Bible. And it's also a half-hour audio, and you can download all of that at GembaDocs.com. And for people that are serious about this, that book was written for a purpose. That is part of getting people lined up. So in there, you understand, well, why would I want this? And that's a key part of building that engagement. That okay, why would I want to do this? Because often standards are perceived as handcuffs within manufacturing. They're used as a stick to beat people with, and therefore they get resisted. The other part of the alignment is historically, pre-GembaDocs in SME world, that there was no easy way to create standards, especially for physical processes. So people were messing around with their phone and Excel and Word and Google Docs, take half a day to document even the most simple process, and nobody had the resources to do it. So it was really mission impossible, and that's why so few SMEs have proper SOPs. So getting familiar with a tool like GembaDocs is part of that alignment phase. So now, like if I put myself back to when I ran factories, if you've got a 60 people factory, you've got a production manager, you've got 4 or 5 team leaders in the shop floor. If we're focusing in the production area, so we can show people, hey, look, this thing, you can document a setup in a few minutes almost while you're doing it. It's not extra work. And if you're bringing the team together while you're doing that, you're really taking away that one thing that was preventing you getting lined up, which was, where am I going to find the time to do this? So getting that done, and then when we've got that, let's say, understanding, it's just a very simple rollout plan within that alignment process. So guys, we're going to document 2 or 3 procedures a week, up to 5, I would say. And we're going to do that every single week. We're going to meet every Friday, discuss how we get on. And what we've learned at GembaDocs now, typically 300 SOPs cover most SMEs. So if you say to yourself, well, in GembaDocs, it takes like 15 minutes to do a standard, 300 times 15, should have the maths worked out, 75 hours, I would say, of that individual, if they're the leader of that cell, to get it done. And we're going to get onto the document because it's not just a one-person job when you're creating a good standard. But hopefully you get to see there that lining up is about getting people wanting to do it and a basic plan, and understanding that it's realistic to do it as well. Super important.
They can eat the elephant one bite at a time.
I
think that involving people, the worst mistake people or management makes is saying, well, I know what this SOP should be in my head, so I'm going to write it until, as you said, sort of like a handcuff. Whereas involving, and I know this is sort of stepping into the document phase, but aligning people on the fact that they will be part of the process, their knowledge will feed into creating and improving these SOPs.
Like the alignment part is like, why do we want SOPs? Like, is it just a stick to beat us with? Because then don't be surprised, dear management, if nobody wants to do it. It's like, really, what we found, the fundamental usefulness of having a GembaDoc is that we've got a standard to refer to and a standard to train. And for people that aren't that familiar with the task, you can be upskilled far faster than if that GembaDoc doesn't exist. And that makes everybody's life easier. So if you take that manufacturing situation again, I'm a team leader. I've got 6 people reporting to me. I've always got a new person that I'm having to train up. They're a total time soak when you've got no SOPs. When you have SOPs, like we've got thousands of examples of this now, the new guy, you maybe have to show him once against the SOP. He might not see that job for 3 months. If you've got the SOP available, he has a guide to help him do that task. And he might not have to ask the team leader. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
The team leader is less burdened. The new starter is less stressed. And you've much more chance of letting that calm, productive flow happen. So that is all part of that alignment phase, is understanding the purpose of why we want to do this, you know?
No, it makes perfect sense. So in terms of the documentation piece, you mentioned that it's not a one-person job.
No, it's only a one-person job for super simple tasks. Like, if you want to, we do advocate for our customers to use GembaDocs everywhere. So if you want to, if you're like me, my favorite example of this is the how to change the print cartridge, because I might not change that print cartridge maybe once a year because other people change it when they go to use the printer and like without an SOP, changing that damn print cartridge can be like 20 minutes of swear words trying to work everything out where everything is. So, but that kind of process, totally okay. So one person can document it, put a QR code on the printer, no problem. The next person that goes to do that task can have that problem. The answer is where the question is.
Yeah.
And yeah, fine. For those little everyday, non-critical, non-core tasks, yeah, do it yourself. Do it as many as you can, as quick as you can. It's all good. But for core business processes, no, I don't advocate we do that at all.
And that's obviously because many brains have gone into developing processes. So when you come to document them, you want to get the best version of the process.
Yeah. There's one, I wrote in great processes, you can have the best of. Like for those of us that remember the 80s now, now that I call music, whatever, you can get the best of everybody's collective approach of doing a particular task. And that's one reason why you want to do it with at least 2 people. So if you go back to your typical manufacturing situation, your team leader on the cell doesn't set that up every single day, doesn't do that job every single day. You want the process that he has a lot of knowledge, but in this case, he's really the facilitator. So he's the process champion facilitator. The person who's doing the job every day, they need to be part of creating that standard. And ideally more than one of them, because if the people are doing it different ways, you will get an amalgam best of, and you will find improvements.
Yeah,
you will find improvements. I want to stress that your actual documenting of the process is maybe the first time it's been consciously analyzed. And when you force yourself, which we do in GembaDocs, step by step to review the process, why are we doing that? And we're asking that as a team. And like, do we really need to do that? Should we be doing something else? Because that's a risk. That's another aspect. But so the ideal team is champion, facilitator, expert, overdoing it every single day, that person. And a newbie is really good. Somebody who's not familiar with the process.
Ask
the stupid question. Why do we do it like that, etc. And also as part of the testing process of that, so that you take that process and get, like, again, this is the gap between Toyota production system and most of our realities. In TPS, the SOP is not something that gets used to guide somebody to do a task who's not familiar with it. In TPS, that's like a biblical left hand, right hand, detailed, will not be deviated from, or like it's a disciplinary. Most GembaDocs don't look like that, and they aren't used in that way. So it's critical from a lot of processes that somebody, like we have people using them for complicated, like setting up a CNC cutting machine.
Yeah.
And yeah, they could be used with very minimal guidance to do that task. So they need to be comprehensive enough to allow somebody to do that. So the newbie brings that test into the document process.
The Made to Grow podcast is brought to you by FlowLens, the simple, affordable MRP system specifically designed for SME device, equipment and machinery manufacturers. Our top-rated cloud-based software can help you cut down on wasted materials, time and money, and eliminate the chaos of running your manufacturing with spreadsheets and hope. Our customers have reported savings of over a day per week per person in their business by cutting out needless admin, duplication of work, and countless mistakes. Plus, lead times are shortened by up to 75%. And after hundreds of successful implementations, we've got the blueprint for manufacturing success nailed down. Head over to flowlens.com for a quick video tour of the software and to hear from more manufacturers like you who have transformed their businesses with Flowlens. Now, back to the interview. I know we've part of our process, again, not to talk too much about Flowlens, but the similarities are there as well, because whenever you're, they never say automate or digitize a bad process. You want to get the improvement, and that team effort at analyzing. The most fun I think I have is whenever we do a process mapping exercise with the team before they even think about implementing Flowlens, because it's the light bulb moments going on around the table, around the whiteboard of, why do we do it like that? Or even people who are cross-functional not realizing the impact that some actions that they take have downstream and so on. So there are huge benefits to that exercise, and then
Certainly.
Obviously it's not set in stone either. It can be improved, and I suppose that comes down then to the next couple of phases. So the implementation.
Yeah, sure does.
Yeah,
I've been part of that myself, but I've been through quite a few ERP implementations with my grey hair, and it is really fun. I find those work, rooms full of post-it notes. Like it's a fun exercise. It's a really creative and brilliant for building the team. And again, it's great that we touch on that, because this is where you can use this kind of process to really change and build and get your culture much more cohesive. This is the thing that's like the gel that holds your organization together. And when you're conscious about that, when you're either implementing your ERP system or putting your standards in place, which is a very similar process, in my opinion, then you'll get good results. If you don't do that and you ignore it and you try to just shortcut this thing in, it's really a effort reward equation.
Yeah.
If you don't put the effort in, you won't get the reward. It's pretty simple.
So in terms of that implementation phase, so you've put that effort in at the front end. You've started to document the processes. You've got your 4 or 5 a week that you're producing. So in terms of that actual take up then, or the fixing in place piece, stage 3, how does that work in practice?
So again, depends on the criticality of the process. For the keys, the 3 phases of that I see are awareness, training, and verification stroke validation. So for your printer cartridge change, well, we're not going to formally gather our people together and train them how to change the printer cartridge. So how do we make them aware? Well, you put the answer where the question is in these cases. So within the GembaDocs, Gembaverse, we have different ways of doing that. You can put the QR code on a piece of equipment that lets you know how to work the coffee machine or change the printer or whatever, operate the scanner. These are all very common examples. But that helps. You have to imagine. You have to consider how you're going to deploy it so that everyone's aware. So otherwise, there's no point in writing the SOP. So the people that need to know need to know. So the easiest way of doing that, print them out. You can in GembaDocs, you can print the whole thing out, put it where the operation happens. You at least know they're aware of it, right?
Yeah.
So awareness is your first step. So put the answer where the question is one answer. And the second answer for, let's say, relatively casual processes. For critical processes, we need to make sure that everyone's formally aware. And having a training matrix of some form is the best way to do that.
In other words, is that like a diagnosis of who knows what and who, what level people are at?
It's a very common thing in manufacturing. You don't have to be particularly lean. The whole concept of a skills matrix is something visible in the shop floor.
Yeah.
I get too Americanized these days. It's just the shop. Don't talk to too many Yanks these days. But no, it's the shop. And you have your operators in that department along the top and the processes along this, or it can be either way.
Yeah.
And each cell shows what's their competence level
the
at a
competence.
particular task.
Yeah.
So, it's normally, like, I've done these in the past quite a few times. It's a painful process, but people use it because it's the only way they have. We're actually building a module in GembaDocs to connect this into the SOPs and other training activities to make that much slicker. But that is the basic building block. If you want to really fix it in place, you need to who's trained on that task. It's documented, and what level they are, whether they are operate under supervision, can operate without supervision, and an ability to train. So person X is able to train someone else. Even that single point is so critical, because if you have a blind person training another blind person, sorry, I don't mean to be politically incorrect in any way,
Metaphorically.
but if metaphorically, the person who does the training needs to be, verified that they're able to do that. Otherwise, you get poor processes implemented with, and who hasn't in manufacturing circles been in that position? Like, I think Dave, like we had it recently, a couple of months back. It's like X person trained Y person, and as soon as my business partner and I found out about that, it's like, oh no, you just knew.
This explains a lot.
Yeah. So that's actually part of what drives us, is our own experience in our current manufacturing lives is what informs GembaDocs. So we're actually building a module where you can see who's aware, who's trained, who's validated, and at what level. And that's what you need to do for your critical quality customer effecting processes.
Yeah. So, bringing us neatly on to the improvement piece. So you've worked your way through. People are hungry and they understand.
Oh, sorry, I should actually bring us back just for a minute to the implementation thing, because again, there is we have a framework we took from training within industry, which is a 70-year-old technique. It was created during the Second World War when the Americans needed to build planes and ships with people who didn't normally build planes and ships because they were all off fighting in the war. And there is a good way of training an individual and a not good way of training an individual, especially for a physical process. So there's a prepare the worker, understand what their knowledge level is, depending on their learning style, whether you're using, show me, tell me, watch me processes. But basically, we need to go through that structured process of, right, here's how you do it step by step, explaining each key point with each step. Then, right, okay, watching and supervising them, doing that step, doing the questioning, deciding to yourself, what's our interim countermeasure going to be to contain that work while that person's getting trained? Because again, in the real manufacturing world, how many problems are associated to that not very experienced worker was left alone and the product got to the customer? So what are our containment measures while that person gets fully validated to do that job? And now they get signed off and they can work under they're now work without supervision and develop over time into the next level up. But utterly crucial. And I see that problem all the time. So yeah, that's thought it was important not to skip it.
No, again, it's sort of, it's common sense, but people either operating by the seat of their pants or just not very switched on.
They're just not aware.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's not being empathetic enough to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's receiving the training. That little framework that I've taken from training within the industry, the bottom part of there's a matrix of 4, but the line at the bottom gets me the most. If the trainee hasn't learned, the trainer hasn't taught. So it's not that they're dumb or they're stupid and all the things that go with that. It's like you've not created the clarity and given them the support to do the job. Now, obviously, there can be rocket science tasks that are beyond some people's capability, but generally, I'm in the place where that's true. If the trainee hasn't learned, the trainer hasn't taught.
I wish my A-level biology teacher had been aware of that phrase. They might have taken their job a bit more seriously. But anyway, I'm still here.
No scars.
Not at all. Not triggered at all.
Yeah.
So improvement, and this is again some similarities with us leaving people just to work away at a process and assuming it's fine is
Yeah.
always a recipe for disaster as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
how do you see your customers successfully, reinforcing that the value that they're getting from this
Mm-hmm.
and compounding it, I suppose is the word I'm looking for.
We literally just implemented this in our latest update, where we give our customers the function of being able to set a structured review for an SOP, and they can
Mm-hmm.
do it en masse. And you can set a review schedule, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, and then we provide them with a structured set of questions to ask
Mm-hmm.
against that. So believe it or not, I'm not a huge fan of ISO, even though I mentioned base 5750, and it was the first job, even task I had in my whole career. Um, and I'm not a fan. I think a lot of the time those systems are wallpaper. But one of the things I will admit, we had customers within GembaDocs who are ISO 9000 approved, and it is a part of the standard where they want to be able to show that they're reviewing their processes.
Yeah.
And that inspiration goes back maybe 18 months. It's taken me this long to go, actually, you know what? That part of the standard within GembaDocs is a really, really good feature. We can get our customers a structured process to go, are we still doing this at a very basic level? Is it still the way we do it? Do our people know about it? Are they trained, aware, competent? Do we have opportunities to improve quality, simplicity, speed? And we just give them that framework to facilitate that structured discussion. Because again, like I could actually still say I have automotive in my DNA,
Yeah.
and we're trained so hard and well to be structured. That doesn't exist in a hell of a lot of SMEs. So what I wanted to do with that was to give a structured tool within GembaDocs, so we effectively force the structure and force the thinking with our customers. So it's not just tick it off as reviewed, it's that there's the process to review it. And as a team,
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Well, we're rolling quickly towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
episode, Tom. I'd love to.
Oh,
There's
oh.
many more things we could tease out there, but I know our listeners probably have a fire to put out, or maybe a trial of GembaDocs to go and start.
Yeah, yeah, sure
um,
they have. Absolutely.
yeah,
Free 30 days, go do it.
yeah. I always ask guests to leave listeners with one pithy piece of advice, so that they can springboard from, other than downloading a free trial of GembaDocs. uh, what thought would you leave our listeners with?
hmm I think if you have a problem in your business, the first question to ask, and I'll choose some examples. Somebody didn't do it the way it was supposed to be done. It should have been done like this. Those kind of situations. The first place you should look is in the mirror at yourself and ask, have I created the environment for that to happen well? Have I
Okay.
provided the clarity? Have I provided the support? Did they have the tools? Before you start to go pointing, that to me is one of the biggest lessons that I had early on in my career. I try to live like that, both at home. It's harder at home than it is at work, but it's a huge gift to give. I think if nobody's thought of that, I think that's a massive gift to be able to go reflect before you dive in, and how, especially as a leader, I actually wrote a book called Improvement Starts with I. There it is there. That's my
That's the
picture frame
poster.
for it. And that's a lot of what's behind that kind of mindset.
Yeah, 100%. It reminded me of a song lyric from a um, once significant Belfast band called Torgus Valley Reds, who said I don't react, I reflect. Um,
Beautiful.
so that is the thought for the
Yeah,
day.
great way to be. Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely. But yeah, look, I hope the listeners got something out of this. And yeah, we've really loved the GembaDocs is improving every day. We're blessed with our customers. We get so much good feedback. Everything we do is driven by them. It's been a passion project for me. I love every minute of it.
Happy
I
days.
can really genuinely say that.
You can
I
tell.
love every minute
You
of
can tell.
it. So it's way more than a business.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Tom.
Hmm.
GembaDocs.com is the place to go for a trial, and
Yeah, or
obviously,
download the app from the App Store. Also,
yeah.
free 30-day trial. I would say the app is our real golden thing. The
Hmm.
app helps. There's nothing better to document a physical process on the planet, and it doesn't cost a year.
And
So,
on the
Rich,
Gamba.
thank you so much for having me on, and you can do it all on the Gemba. That's why we call it GembaDocs workplace. But Richard, thanks so much for having me on.
No
Really
worries, Tom.
appreciate it. It's
Pleasure.
been a joy as always.
Till next time.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Tom for sharing his knowledge and experience with us all. As promised, his book will be coming out in September, and as with his previous title, it sounds like it will be an informative, practical and entertaining read. Stay in touch with Tom on LinkedIn to keep up to date with publishing dates, and check out GembaDocs for more information on SOPs. Tom echoes what many of our guests tell us about implementing systems or creating cultural change in a manufacturing business. Planning is paramount, and getting buy-in across the business is the key determinant of success or failure. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving Made to Grow a 5-star review on your platform of choice. This really helps us to reach new listeners and continue producing helpful content for SME manufacturers like you. Next time, we'll be talking net zero, and in particular how we're trending towards more reporting requirements. We'll be speaking with Nishant Raj, CEO of Value Chain, who are specialists in technology that helps connect supply chains. In particular, we'll be looking at the thorny challenge of Scope 3 emissions and how SMEs can get a more reliable grip on this seemingly endless piece of string. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.